Tigers lose at home, and there will be a Game 5. We'll talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, October 11th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Welcome in, everybody. The Detroit Tigers lose Game 4, 5-4. It is now a 2-2 series. There will be a Game 5 on Saturday night. That start time keeps jumping around and changing because of what's happening. The Yankees clinched, and it moved. It was like 4:30, then it was 6. Now I think it's 8. So keep tabs on when the start time for that game is going to be. It's going to be in Cleveland. That game was heartbreaking. That was excruciating pain. Tigers had a lot of opportunities. A lot. I can't say enough about how many opportunities the Tigers had to put this game out of reach, put this game away, to just straight up win this game. And, you know, these two teams, their styles line up to produce this type of baseball, right? Very low scoring, high intensity, close ball games. And that's what most of this entire series has been. And I don't expect Game 5 to be too terribly different. Really a gut punch this ball game ended up being. You fought the lead back. You got some hits off Clase. You had runners in scoring position late. You had runners in scoring position all game. And just for the life of you, could not hit that man, and ended up being the Achilles heel of the Tigers. And that's something that both teams have struggled with a lot this series. And the team that has gotten one more hit has came out on top. And that was the case in this one. So what went wrong? The star of the show of what went wrong is Risp. We'll talk about the bullpen in a second. But this is actually a conversation for longtime listeners that we used to have back in like May, when the bullpen was really good and the offense was terrible. And we were like, you cannot demand and expect and have the expectation, have the bar be 0 ERA baseball from everybody that goes on the mound in order to win games. If that is the case, you do not have a good enough offense. You do not have a sustainable product on offense. And it really felt like a May baseball game again. We've been talking about the poor clutch hitting, the poor hitting with Risp for this team since the start of the postseason, right? Since Houston. And this is the game where it finally caught back up to you in a really big way. Like I mentioned earlier, both teams have struggled with Risp, and Cleveland literally got one more big hit than you. And in the last two games, it's been the Tigers that have done that. Their numbers aren't good with Risp in those games, but they did just a little bit more than Cleveland did. Cleveland did next to nothing for 2 games. You weren't going to shut them out every single game this series. They went 2 for 9 with Risp. The Guardians did 2 for 9. Tigers 1 for 11. Reese Olson struggled with command, really all outing. We did see a true start in this ball game from someone not named Tarik Skubal, which was somewhat interesting just in its own right, because we haven't seen that very often for the Tigers this postseason. Only gave up the 1 run, which is not the end of the world, really. And it was in 4 innings pitched. He had 4 strikeouts. I didn't think it was terrible, but the command he really struggled with. And in the first inning, the inning in which he gave up his one run. The command was really brutal there, and then it kind of evened out a little bit, but really fastball command was a problem the entire outing. Slider command was a problem for a lot of the outing. His best pitch, I think, was the changeup, which was incredibly effective for righties and lefties for a majority of the outing. But he really struggled with command, was letting it sail a little bit, and it led to one run against. Now, again, one run in 4 innings, not the end of the world. Certainly not the reason why the Tigers lost this ball game. I thought Reese Olson was pretty fine, all things considered. But let's talk about the bullpen. Tyler Holton, Sean Gunther, Beau Brieske, Jackson Jobe all ended this game with 1 earned run against. All of them. Jobe obviously was the bunt, right? Will Vest was on the mound for it. It was a bunt, and that is his earned run, though, because he gave up 3 hits yet again. And then Sean Gunther obviously gave up a runner to what eventually led to Beau Brieske giving up the home run. One of those runs was his, so he was not on the mound for his either. But, what else are you going to do? Like, you went to, we can talk about the Jobe conversation, like bringing him in, I guess, but like the other 3 guys, Holton's been your best reliever all year. Beau Brieske's been your best reliever in the postseason, and Sean Gunther has an ERA under 1 since getting called up. Like, I don't have an issue with going to those guys in that situation. It just was bound to, I don't want to say not work, but they were bound to not have, 0 ERAs and not give up a single run the entire, postseason. And Holton obviously has given up runs already, got smacked around in game 2 there, but the Beau Brieske situation specifically, we can even deep dive that one and go in a little bit more. Like, you had on the bump the guy who has, again, been arguably your best reliever in the postseason against David Fry. Fry is the Guardians' pinch hitter against lefties. Like, that's his role. He's their Andy Ibanez. A lefty comes out and Fry goes out and he rakes. He is even, honestly, on the season, significantly, I'll even say, better at hitting lefties than Andy Ibanez was this season by the end. Andy Ibanez obviously slid at the end of the season there. That is his role. So you had Beau Brieske, notoriously a right-handed pitcher, with a 0 ERA in the postseason, and all the faith in the world from myself, from the coaching staff who makes the decisions, obviously, I'm a nobody, and the fan base on the mound. That was great. Good. That's the situation you want. You want Fry up against the righty, and it was a guy who's been really good. He just got beat to the spot. It happens, man. You're going to have to rely on the offense at some point. And it was in this game, and they didn't come through, and they won 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. The bullpen didn't get exposed. It didn't get completely annihilated. Those guys I mentioned gave up 1 earned run. You lost 5-4, not 9-2, not 12-4. As far as Jobe goes, everybody's going to point to that. I didn't mind going to him in the first place, to be honest with you. I didn't mind his first inning of work there. I did have an issue with how long he was left out there. And the reason why I had an issue, such a big issue with it by the end of the outing, was because they went to Will Vest after. Will Vest has been unbelievable over the last month and a half, and has been incredible in the postseason. Again, arguably your best reliever. So if Vest was always available, why on earth did he not just go out there to start the inning? I really don't understand that one from AJ at all. I guess I can kind of see, like, you're trying to, if you can avoid pitching Vest, then I guess great. But you are in a position where you are trying to end the series. You're trying to not have to pitch again in 2 games. And so if Will Vest was always available, I really don't understand stretching out Jackson Jobe there. Wasn't a righty lefty thing. They're both righties. I really didn't get it at all. Let's talk about some individuals on offense that struggled in this game, and then we'll get into what went right. It was not all doom and gloom, and then we'll talk stuff and preview this pivotal win or go home. Goodness, Game 5. We will do all of that right after this. Got to talk to you all today about our friends over at Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhoodgold.com. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, even after a crushing loss. We will, of course, be back on Monday recapping the series finale against the Guardians here in the ALDS. Also, be sure to check out Jake Rietma, who will be here immediately following the game, win or lose, on Friday as well. Locked On Tigers postcast. So, Tigers lose this ball game 5-4 in front of a record-setting crowd at Comerica Park that broke the record from literally the previous day, which was really cool to see. The city show out, very starved for a competitor here, and they have found one in the Detroit Tigers, albeit a crushing loss on Thursday night. So we talked about the pitching a lot. Let's talk about some offensive players, some position players in this ballgame. Trey Sweeney had a rough day at the plate. A lot of swing and miss in that bat, man. And that's something we can talk about a lot more in the offseason and talk about kind of what shortstop is going to look like next year. And I still very much appreciate what he has given this team. I still very much think that he has been an improvement over Javi Baez, but that's a pretty low bar, that right? Like you can find players that are better than Javi that still aren't like incredible. And so I think that that'll be a conversation later, but just this postseason has just been a strikeout machine and has had some big hits as well. And he has had some big hits in the regular season too. I still really like the deal. I still like Trey Sweeney, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the caveats I have to put on things so people don't get mad at me. But I in this game, I think kind of the swing and miss reared its ugly head, and he left a lot of runners on base specifically. Colt Keith, 0 for 2 with 2 strikeouts, had a walk in this game at least, but man, his postseason numbers are brutal. He's hitting 071 currently. I think that means he has 1 hit in the playoffs, maybe 2. It's not great. And he just kind of looks overpowered, which is weird because that is not. There's a lot of things with Colt Keith's approach that I think need adjusting, and I think that's also, again, a conversation we'll have a lot in the winter. But overpowered is not something he has ever been. He has not ever been somebody that gets into the batter's box and you just can absolutely, like pump velocity down his throat or anything like that. Like he's usually pretty level-headed and stable with that kind of stuff. And man, in the postseason, he just looks completely overmatched. So hopefully that is something that can change, preferably sooner rather than later. I don't know, maybe even Saturday. Matt Vierling, rough day at the plate, 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts, had a couple of ABs in some really crucial moments, and unfortunately it did not come through. Not ever a great thing when your 3-hitter has a game like that and goes 0 for 5 with 3 Ks. His postseason numbers are also not phenomenal. He had the one really, really good game where he got on base 4 times, and outside of that, it's been pretty few and far between. Let's talk about what went right, though. Like I said, this was not all just a complete disaster. The Tigers were winning this ball game going into the final third of the game, right into the back 3 innings of the ball game. They had a lead, and that was in large part due to some pretty solid offensive performances, as well as obviously Reese Olson, who we mentioned there. Winfield Perez, 2 for 2, man. I love Winfield Perez so much. And he's just the dude that no matter the situation, he is just so cool, calm, and collected. And I have said that so many times over the last week and a half about Winfield Perez, and he continues to do stuff like this. And I'll continue saying it. I think AJ has the utmost respect and trust in Winfield Perez, and I think he's earned it. I really do. I think the world of him, and I'm not sure he's ever like an everyday player, especially in the outfield. You got to be a pretty darn good hitter to be a corner outfielder on this team at this point. And so we'll see what his future holds, but I think he has certainly found at least, switch hitter, bat to ball skills, can play a few different positions. I think he has found a role going forward, no less. And it can be a pretty important role, as we've seen in the postseason from him. He's hit well all postseason. Zach McKinstry with the big home run. Really, really great. I'm sorry this is so doom and gloom, man. Like, I'm trying to be like, more, I don't know, perky. I'm trying to be more enthusiastic about this stuff. This might like put somebody to sleep. Like, I'm so sorry. I just feel like I'm talking very monotone. Just like it's midnight. I watched the Tigers lose in a heartbreaking fashion. Then I had to watch the Red Wings completely collapse, actually at the same time as the Tigers. And then do both shows back to back and talk about really brutal stuff, brutal ball games, brutal hockey games, whatever you want to call it. It's late. I'm exhausted. I apologize. Not trying to make excuses. Just, really, I'm trying to, change the inflection in my voice and be a little bit more excited and a little bit more exciting. But this was just crushing. This was a rough night. This was a rough night for Detroit sports. Was a really rough one. So I appreciate you all for tuning in and sticking with me here through the thick and the thin that we are talking about right now. So back on track, Zach McKinstry with a big home run, and his playoff numbers are fantastic. And I think that was such a big homer. And like going opposite field on a fastball up and away, I never thought I'd see the day. Good for Zach McKinstry. He has, a guy that everybody wanted DFA'd. I was talking about DFAing him their post-trade deadline and really turned it around, hit a little bit better post-deadline. And then on top of that, in the postseason has been hitting really, really well. And I think the reason why is because he knows his role and AJ knows his role, and they're all in agreement of what his role is. And he is being put in he is being put in situations where he can flourish. And he's being put in situations where he can make something happen. And he did in this ball game. It was a huge home run to tie the game in that moment. And it was really, really cool. So then you have Justin Henry Malloy, another guy who has been phenomenal in the postseason, seems to just keep getting hits, smoked a double off of Class A. Wasn't like a lucky BABIP double either, man. He got the hands inside. That was 102 in on the hands, and he was early, like cranked it down the left field line, got a huge double in the moment, ended up being the fourth run for the Detroit Tigers in a game in which they lost by 1. So very obviously, I don't know, like not the most important run in the world, all things considered, but in the 9th inning there was a great way to start off that inning. And he's another guy. I'm going to regurgitate kind of what I said about McKinstry. I feel like he's being put in situations where he can thrive. And, this one, Jake Rogers went 0 for 3 in this game, but has been really good in the postseason and has a hit off Class A. So, going to Malloy there was certainly a little bit gutsy by AJ, and it worked out and, proved that clearly AJ sees something in Malloy that he thinks he is a good matchup against Class A, and it worked out. So want to give him credit as well. That was a really, really good AB. Want to give credit to Colt Keith defensively. I know I kind of ragged on him earlier because the offense wasn't very good. Made a huge play in this ball game. Was that the 8th or 9th inning even? Huge huge play rather, to save a run in this ball game and keep the deficit at where it was. We've talked about his defense a lot over the course of the season. It was a really rough start. It's been kind of spotty, but it has gotten better. and seeing him make that big play in that moment, I think was really, really cool. And hopefully then give him some momentum at the plate going into game 5 as well. I think Will Vestal looked really good. Like the bunt, it was a good bunt. It's a good bunt. I don't have too much else to say. That play's not on Vest. It's not on Rogers. It's not on Vierling at first base. Everybody did what they were supposed to do. Just a dang good bunt. It was placed perfectly, and it won them the ball game. So tip the cap and try and go win on Saturday, I guess. But or get a single other hit with runners in scoring position, and maybe we're talking about a series clincher as well. But we've already talked about that. So let's got a few more players I want to talk about, a few more things I want to highlight on the side of things that went right. Don't want it to all be doom and gloom. Then we will get into stuff. Talk Tarik Carpenter. Terrifying. Hopefully he's okay. We'll see what happens there. Then we'll obviously talk about game 5. Okay. We will do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least one or two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season on Prize Picks. It's so fun, and they have so many great offers as well. It's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. It's also the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. So download the Prize Picks app, use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So, I want to give Riley Greene some credit. He's somebody that we talked about on this show as somebody that really needed to step up and that the Tigers would really, really need if they wanted to advance and make it to the ALCS, because he has been very quiet at the plate so far this postseason. He got on base 3 times in this game, 2 for 3 with a walk. Really big game. They will need him again on Saturday. I assure you, they will need Riley Greene to come through in a situation at least once, if not multiple times, on Saturday's ball game. All in all, this is a tough one. It's a tough one because I don't think there was any one reliever that was terrible. And you went to your A bullpen, especially early, right? You threw Holton out there, you threw Brieske out there, you eventually threw Vest out there. Like you went to the guys who have been your best relievers. They showed some cracks, right? And your offense actually scored the most runs it has scored all series in this game. So it's tough. You didn't have one big explosion or like one terrible inning on the mound. You didn't have one pitcher just completely blow it for you. And your offense technically did, quote unquote, the best. I'm not sure I'd agree with that, but purely if the object is to score runs, it's the most runs they've scored all series up to this point. But you had an opportunity to really put this game out of reach and put this game away, and you went 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. That is just so atrocious. I can't even articulate it as I want to. Stuff. Tarik Carpenter leaves this game with an injury because we can't just lose. We also have to have our literal best hitter go down with an injury and be questionable for the game on Saturday. Now, he was rounding third base, stepped on the bag funny, and messed up his hamstring. I don't know anything else. He would have had 2 more at-bats in this ball game as well, and instead Jace Young, who has struggled mightily since getting called up, has to take those ABs. Huge moment, not only in this game, but obviously could be a potentially massive loss for game 5. If you are going into that game already with an offense that has not been great, right? Not been super high powered, taking away the dude with an OPS over 900 is not exactly the first thing on the coaching staff's to-do list, I don't think, going into the game Saturday. So you look, if he's even able to walk, he's going to play. They'll just DH him, right? They're going to try to find any way possible to get ABs for Kerry Carpenter, because at the end of the day, his at-bats on one leg are probably still more valuable than Jace Young ABs or potentially Zach McKinstry ABs, et cetera, et cetera. But if he can't play, that's a tough hand to be dealt. You lose game 4 when you had a lead going into the 7th and your best hitter gets hurt. Not how you drew it up. So again, I'll reiterate. I know we talked a lot about the pitching not being as dominant as it was, but you have to come through. You have to come through. You have to. Also thought it was kind of poetic in a really messed up way that the Tigers and Wings seemed to both kind of collapse at the same time. I had 2 TVs going because I'm covering both teams, and it was really wild to watch the Tigers, give up the homer and then not be able to score and leave runners on base and whatnot, while the Wings are just giving up goal after goal after goal after goal. Because they both were winning. At one point, the Wings were up 1-0 in the first period, halfway through the first period, and the Tigers were winning in the middle of the ball game. And you were like, oh my goodness, Detroit is so back. We rock. We're awesome. This is so much fun. And then the Wings gave up 4 unanswered goals, and the Tigers gave up a home run to blow the lead. Not great. Andy Ibanez, I also want to point out, just barely missed a home run. We're talking about they went 1 for 11 with Risp. Who cares? They got the big hit, whatever. The tone of this completely changes if Andy Ibanez hits that ball 4 feet more. Maybe that's a little bit exaggerating. 10 feet more. He got a hold of that thing, man. Opposite field, late in game, warning track, back to the wall for whoever's in right field at that point. Tough. Now you got game 5. It's win or go home. The sports books have the Tigers as the favorite in that game, pretty much solely because of Tarik Skubal, I would imagine, who still has a 0 ERA in the postseason. I don't know who's going for Cleveland. Matthew Boyd pitched game 2 when Skubal pitched, so he will, Matt Boyd could be the guy. He could be the one. That would be devastating. Oh my gosh. I don't even want to think about that. We're going to move on. I don't even want to think about blowing a 2-1 lead in Cleveland with Matt Boyd on the mound. That just breaks my heart a million different ways. I'm terrified, if that wasn't clear. I am unbelievably anxious for this ball game. It will be managed like there's no tomorrow. You will see all of the best relievers, no matter the score. They're going to leave it all out there. Doesn't matter if they're down 2, down 4, up 2, up 4, tie game. Doesn't matter. You're seeing all the best relievers getting unleashed in this one. No one's going to be off limits. You got an off day as well. On top of that, you're going to see everybody. The same way, I just want to put this in perspective, the same way that a lot of Tigers fans, myself included, yesterday, right? We're talking about even if you lose game 4, you got Skubal, right? I still don't want it. Still, I'm glad we have the best pitcher breathing going out there Saturday, but I still would have much preferred to get the job done, because anything can happen in one game, especially on the road. And that's, I think, a point I really want to drive home. The same way that we're talking about, we have Tarik Skubal going in game 5, that's a nice reassurance, insurance policy. Cleveland's going, we just split on the road in Detroit, and now we're coming back home for game 5. They're pleased too. And they have their bullpen, which is absolutely phenomenal. It's the best bullpen in baseball in a win or go home game. You need offense. If that wasn't painfully obvious, you cannot consistently demand 0 ERAs from all of your pitchers and expect a consistent winning product, man. You have to come through. You have to come through more than you did. And more than you have. They've been bailed out by a lot of 0 ERAs. Tarik Skubal was one of them. Hopefully he can keep that up. And like I said, I'll end on the same point I said earlier. Anything can happen in one game, man. Absolutely anything. Much different vibes in this show than what we've been having, but they've been winning a lot. And that's been really exciting. And this was a crushing blow. This was a really tough loss. And it's all going to come down to game 5 on Saturday night. No matter what happens, we will be back on Monday. I appreciate you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate you rocking with me throughout this entire season. Hopefully, we're recapping a win and we're previewing a game against the New York Yankees. If not, we'll be here anyway. Appreciate you all so much. Best fans in the world. This team has. I know we all just want winning baseball. Let's go win a ball game, and I'll forget about game 4. That's the thing, right? Is like I'm all doom and gloom. Skubal goes out there and shoves. You score 4 to 6 runs. You walk away with a win. Who's the wiser? Appreciate you all greatly. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all Monday, baby. I am petrified. Go Tigers.